Welcome back, Internet, to another episode of Perfect Faraday. I'm George Merchant, your ever beautiful host, here with my longtime friend, Jeremiah Evans.
Hey, Internet, how are you today?
Today, we're going to talk about work ethic. So, we try to keep it relatable and stuff, and we're not going to get too negative, but I think everybody right now kind of have sort of the same feelings about what's kind of going out in the world about work ethic and stuff like that. So, Jeremiah, I think this episode, I brought you here today to talk about work ethic and what you can do to, help increase that work ethic, but that might actually require you to work. So, I don't know if you want to do that or not.
I'm sorry, were you saying something?
Yeah.
Work's a four-letter word, my friend.
Were we doing something?
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Were we actually trying to, produce something of value? Let me go. I'll get right to that, boss. So, I think people probably get what we're getting at there pretty easily, but so I wanted to bring this subject up because there's a ton of articles, all over the internet, and you hear about it, about the loss of the work ethic, and everybody has their explanations. People blame employers, people blame young people, people blame, there's everybody's throwing this blame around about, the, lack of work ethic, loss of work ethic, and I'm just well, I think people need to work on themselves and not worry so much about everybody else. But we can't continue to go on with the declining work ethic, this decline in productivity as we're going along. And I see it every day. And I don't blame young people. I absolutely don't blame young people, even though you can make the argument that there's millennials that have a certain attitude and the youngest generations coming up or whatever, they have a certain attitude.
Yeah. It's just the millennials and the Gen Zs. It cuts off the Gen X.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Gen Xers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean we're pure work ethic.
We got that from our boomer parents.
It was passed down because everybody was so hardworking and stuff. But I think it's a one of those problems where it's multifaceted. Can I say that? Multifaceted. It's actually a complex problem. I believe that there's actually several things that are feeding into this, and how do we address those things? Because you can't change another person's personality. You can't fix the way they were raised. So there's certain things there that there's not a lot what you can do for them. But I tell you what, one big motivator for increasing work ethic is when you get hungry. It's really weird, but it's a natural sort of thing. And when I say hungry, I'm talking about physically hungry, but then there's also the hunger for a better life, or a better life for your kids or your family or whatever. So I understand that kind of hunger as well. But just being hungry, period, can really motivate you to work quite a bit harder. It's oh no, I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. I'm not going to be able to feed myself. That can motivate you. But there's sort of a bit of despair with that as well. You don't want to be living at that level where, you're super worried about your next paycheck, where a lot of Americans are now. And that's where we are. And like I said, this is a complex issue, man. We got people that are really, really hard workers. I have always respected hard workers. I have always had the utmost respect for hard workers. They can get away with a lot more with me. They can even, talk more trash or whatever, and it doesn't bother me at all, because I'm just hey, they're a good worker. They're productive. They're providing something to society. They're adding value. So, I look up to that. I really look up to hard work, and hard work comes in many different forms, but I always love to see people that have that really good, strong work ethic and a good attitude to go along with it. I do appreciate those even more when somebody's working hard and they also have a really good attitude. It's just those are the kind of people that kind of a joy to be around, and feels good to spend time around those kind of people. They rub off on you and they make you want to be a better person as well. And how do we kind of fix that? Because post COVID, I know we're going to kind of, I don't like talking about COVID on this or whatever. We're just referring to the fact that it happened. Post COVID, a lot of people were saying because the government handed out a lot of money. And I'm like, well, no, it was a problem that was already coming. If you do some quick Google searches, you've got articles from 2007 going all the way up and everything, just people have been lamenting the declining in work ethic. It's harder to find people that'll do the work, harder to find people that will put in the effort, harder to find people that will show up on time, and some of just the more basic things now. And I think everybody has seen this in like the food service industry and things like that on the lower end of things, on the less skilled stuff. But we see it, me and you see it, we've seen it in the technical fields too. Yeah. People's work ethic has really declined, and that's not an age dependent thing. Many of the young people I've met, they want to do better, they want to learn more, they want to know how and stuff, but they don't know how. And sometimes that's mistaken for poor work ethic because they're learning still, and they might have great work ethic. And as long as they're putting forth that effort, people want to teach them and work with them. But if you automatically just in your mind you're just like, oh, that's a young person just has a bad work ethic or whatever, I'm like, no, give them a chance. And everybody has their days too. People get tired, people get sick, people got stuff going on at home and stuff. And a blip in their record is not a permanent part. My work ethic's declined before due to health and stuff, and the amount of effort that I could put out. I wanted to put out more, but I physically couldn't. And I think everybody's been there. I think that's a normal thing. I think it's a pretty normal thing. So you give people some grace and stuff. But I think that we can see a lot better improvements in our productivity if we can help to kind of push that as the noble virtue that it is. Yeah. And I feel like if you want to be great at something, if you truly want to be great at something, then you have to put forth the effort. You have to put forth the effort to get there. You're never going to be great in any field or in anything. People are not going to look up to you. People are not going to, have that same level of respect for you as if you put forth that effort. And you've got to do it over the years. And that experience has to be good experience. How many people have we met that have 40 plus years of experience in our field? And just stink at it still. They're collecting a paycheck.
Yeah. I often have to wonder if they ever if they just gave up after a time or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Or if they ever really had it.
Mm-hmm.
I know, in anything I've done, you have those people that are just really good at, I don't even know how they pull it off for long enough. I guess that, they get friendly with, the right people at their work, and can skate by.
And I think hiring's hard.
Over, make people think that they're more competent than they are,
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Fake it till you make it. Everybody's got a little bit of an imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Even when you're good at what you do, everybody's
I love exuding fake confidence since I don't really have it, But I usually, people, know I'm doing it for a laugh. So I guess along these lines, how much do you think it's personal responsibility versus maybe the workplace environment or the company, as to whether people want to participate
I couldn't give you a percentage.
Okay, well, not as a percentage,
but I would say that
I think
there's a share of both.
Yeah. So maybe we could touch on, the workplace side of it, because
So because we want to be solutions guys, right?
Yeah.
So how do we touch on the workplace side?
What are some things that have worked for you in the past, to get, since you've done more managerial stuff, to get people motivated to want to actually have a better work ethic under you rather than be oh, I'm just here to collect a paycheck?
Okay, so one of the things is that you have to recognize the work when people do it. You have to recognize it. So, and you got to recognize their talents and skills. So you need to work with them.
Yeah.
That's one of the things is you need to work with them. You don't need to be breathing down their neck. You need to work with them. So in our field, for example, when we need to help them do the job, right? So if we're working on some sort of industrial thing or electrical problem or something like that, you go out there, you put your hands on the equipment with them, right?
Yeah.
And you get an idea of their skill sets. You get an idea of where you need to know this anyway, because you want to know this, because then you could say, hey man, I noticed that you're good at this and you're struggling a little bit with this or whatever. I think you're a good worker. I'd like to send you to this training, for example, or whatever. And you would know whether or not that training is going to be effective for them. So I think it's important that if you want your employees to have good work ethic, or you want the people under you in any sort of organization to have good work ethic, you need to have good work ethic first.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's a big difference between real leadership and a boss, or real leadership and a manager or whatever. It's like a leader, leads into the fray, leads into battle, leads into the fight, and they lean into the work and they're not afraid of it. They understand the work, they understand the challenges, they understand the things and the frustrations that the people that are working under them are going through and what they're struggling through, because they've been there, right? And that's a very, very important part of any organization. Because if you fill your organization with a lot of people that don't have a good understanding of the work and what it takes to do it, under them, they won't appreciate their work and they'll never be able to really show it. Okay, yeah. They might be able to fake it a little bit and people will appreciate being thanked. But if you tell a guy, like, the maintenance guys that worked for me in the past, if you tell somebody, like, man, you did a good job on that, I appreciate it, I know that was tough, and they know that you've got 20 years of experience and they've seen you do it and they know you can do it, and your level of experience and knowledge is greater than theirs, they're going to look at you with respect and be like, okay, this man's speaking from experience. It feels good to be, does it feel good to be just flattered by somebody that has accomplished nothing? Or does it feel good to be given, a little bit of praise or pat on the back from somebody that actually knows what you do, right? Yeah. That you look up to and say, he's a skilled in this, or he's a master in his craft, right? So when somebody like that gives you a compliment, it has a lot more weight.
Yeah.
And this is why leadership in these areas and the way you do it is important. When we go into plants and I work with maintenance managers, 9 out of 10 of them have that experience and they're good. So when they pay a compliment, people do appreciate it. But there's a few that they put in those type of positions that really shouldn't be in those positions. And I understand the work, the labor market right now is a bit of a mess. So you might have to, take what you can get. But when it comes to those sort of positions, and it's not just talking about from our maintenance and industrial automation and everything. We're not just talking about that. That's true in everything, right? If you're a doctor, and you've got like 10 years in, and this other guy that's got 30 years of experience in the field, paid you a compliment or whatever, said that was really good work or really good diagnostic work or whatever, then you're going to be like, yeah, that has weight to it. It really feels good coming from somebody like that. But a false flattering from people just to try to get them to go along or whatever, you don't want to tell somebody that's doing a crappy job that they're doing a good job. It absolutely serves nobody, especially your good workers. They hear you paying compliments to the trash worker or whatever, it's only going to beat them down.
Yeah, so I was going to touch on that. So obviously, like, compliments are important, but I think corrective actions, and I see people do something wrong, but in such a way that you still respect them and make them understand, I feel like that's kind of important, because for those exact reasons, you might have a worker that's like, well, if I did that, but I think from my experience with managers, since I haven't really managed people a whole lot, like, I always respected the managers, like you said, that weren't afraid to get out and get their hands dirty, that were like consistent, across the board with stuff, like complimenting, where it needs to be, maybe correcting people, pulling them aside or whatever, but, whatever was necessary there. But yeah, like I feel like some of the better teams I've worked in, like I don't know, I guess I led up some teams even though I wasn't a manager, and I got stuff done like a lot faster in some of the retail jobs. Because like having a good set plan and not just like chaos, like from a manager or, somebody like controlling something is helpful too. People do like to order, whether they'll admit it or not, like a little bit of consistency, like in we need to do this, we need to do this is what's expected, right? But when you're like, just go do your job and stop bothering me, like, of course people aren't gonna, feel like what they're doing is like all that important, right?
Well, when there's no consequences for poor work ethic and no rewards for good work ethic, there's no motivation.
Yeah.
Okay? You're not going to get people motivated when you're not taking care and correcting the poor quality work and the poor things. If you're not dealing with that, I mean, think about it. If you were making a product and this product had flaws and mistakes in it, and you did nothing to correct that, right? And you shipped it out the door that way or whatever, you're going to lose money. And you got to think of labor that way, because labor is productivity. And then the other side of that is like promoting like good quality and saying this is the way that we need to do it, and rewarding appropriately for that, whether it's through pay, whether it's through praise, whether it's through position. You want to reward that good work ethic. And I think we're in a situation where a lot of employers are put in a very tenuous position right now, because we've got inflation going on, hitting everybody pretty hard, and that's pushing the demand for pay up, as well as we've got a much tighter labor pool, and a lot of people retired. There's a lot of reasons there. There's a lot of pieces and puzzles to it, but then they're afraid to get rid of people that they really should get rid of, and that's tough.
Yeah.
I don't like to see anybody get fired. Trust me, it's gut wrenching. I really don't like it at all. But I do understand it, and I do understand the necessity for it, because I've watched guys on forklifts just do hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage.
Yeah.
And if there's no punishment for that, there's there's no warning or firing or something, for that kind of activity, you go, okay, this is going to continue to happen because there's no consequence for it, right?
Yeah.
Or if the guy's always showing up late, you got a guy in your shop that's always showing up late, that's going to run the morale down of everybody else that's doing what they should.
Oh yeah.
And being allowed to continue that and everything. It's like, wait a minute, I'm putting in this good work and everything like that, and you've got this guy over here that's showing up late all the time, not dependable. But employers I do understand right now, it really is a tough position, but employers right now, it's so hard to hold on to anybody that they're holding on to the chaff and saying, okay, we know we should get rid of that, but they do a minimal amount of work, but they do something, so we kind of have to hold on to them, even though they're really causing a rot within the organization, and they're hurting our and I think that's what's happened. I think it's spread. I think is what it is that because these people have been allowed to continue to collect a paycheck, the guys that are working hard are now lowering their output to meet this. And because they're like, hey, we're making the same money, or I'm only making 50 cents more, or whatever, it's not worth it. This guy shows up whenever he wants to, lays out whenever he wants to. And now we're in this position where it's sort of infecting other people. Because I've felt that pressure. I think we all have.
Yeah.
And those of us that have that as a value within us, we can't lower ourselves to that level. We can't, it's like seeing somebody else, beating their wife and saying, well, I don't beat my wife, but he does. Well, I guess I can just go ahead and get away with it too, It's like, it's that kind of justification. Two wrongs don't make a right. Let's not copy, bad behavior, even though we see it.
Yeah. Well,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I mean, I know that you're like saying some, like across the board, but taking a step up from that, like bigger corporations I've worked for, like really should consider who they're putting into management positions, because one bad manager can
Yep.
make a bunch of very motivated, wonderful workers like hate their job and quit, or just want to do the bare minimum.
Absolutely, man.
Like, so, like, I think especially with big corporations, but anywhere, like, I know it's hard to tell how somebody's going to be a manager, especially if you're pulling them in, because they got an MBA or something. It's really hard to, outside of a few interviews, to tell like how their personality is going to be. Once they're on the floor, if they're having a bad day. But like some of the bigger corporations I've worked for, like a lot of people can complain about their upper management, and I'm sure that they take some type of actions on that. But
Yeah.
like they need to be a little more.
Well,
I think, taking action on that, because it's always like, okay, maybe we'll move him over here, but he's still a problem, like.
yeah, I'm non-confrontational. Like I really get uncomfortable about confrontation, but I understand the need and the necessity for corrective action, and I understand that you got to set that feeling aside. Like I might really like a person, like personally,
Yeah.
but they're showing up late and stuff, and I'll be like, look, man, I got to write you up because you showed up late and everything like that.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I had a sick kid or whatever, and you show people grace, but when they take advantage of it and everything, you have to be like, look, no. You got to get this figured out.
Well, and that's not the management type I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm talking about people that just want to belittle people, or just like stuff that you shouldn't do.
Oh,
as a
yeah.
manager. I'm not saying
that's
like
low hanging
following
fruit, right?
Yeah, no, I'm saying somebody that's just a really caustic, like
Yeah, they create an environment around
Yeah.
them. I've been in those situations.
I would rather
Yeah.
work with like 3 people that just wanted to kind of show up and do the bare minimum, and maybe have like one other person that's a heavy worker, than have a manager above me, like act the way some of them have, like.
I agree. Oh, I agree. And I'm not, we're going to pick on everybody a little bit here, because I think that these different issues need to be addressed. And how do you fix those things? Well, one, I do know how to pick out leadership. I do know how to ferret it out. And leadership can be built and developed, but it's also part of the personality too. I think a good leader does have a fair amount of compassion towards other people. I think a good leader does. He thinks about the people that are working under him, because a manager or leader in an organization, they exist to bring out the most in productivity of the people that work for them, right?
Yeah.
That's their whole reason for being, is in a productive business. If you want to stay in business, that's what it has to be. And in order to increase that productivity, and in order to get the most productive, your job is to try to enable them the best you can to do whatever tasks they are. So whether we're talking about a maintenance guy or secretarial staff or anything, it doesn't matter, whatever it is. You want to look for opportunities, tools, pieces of software, whatever it is, that streamlines their productivity and makes them as productive as possible, right?
Yeah.
So if I've got to spend $2,000 on this new tool, right, for pulling wire, whatever it is, but it shaves off, an hour off of every job or something like that, or whatever that we're doing like this, it could pay for itself in like, one job, for example, right?
Yeah.
So those are kind of easy examples for maybe me and you to sort of kind of get and understand, or troubleshooting tools or something like that. Some of that stuff is like no-brainers to me, right?
Yeah.
I might scoff at paying $50 for something, and then you'll come to me with this $2,000 thing, and I'll go, oh yeah, let's get that.
Yeah.
And be like, wow, it's not really the dollar amount. And I'm like, yeah, it's not the dollar amount. It's not the dollar amount because I see savings. I see enabling other people to do more productive work. So why I'm not going to say no to that. My customer saves money. We make more profit. Everybody wins. Why would I not be for that? And it's the same thing with people's personalities too, is in leadership, you want somebody that can read people. You want them to be able to read people. If anybody, you want to write this down, you want people that can read the room, that can read people's emotions, read people's states and stuff like that, because you don't want them pressing buttons on people when somebody's just having an off day, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want them causing the machine to get gummed up with a bunch of interpersonal fighting and stuff like that, because they don't know that, hey, look, I'm going to go put Bob with Jim today, and I'm going to go put, Tim with Joe today, because these different personalities work better together. If I put these two guys together today, it's just not going to work out. Okay. And sometimes it means that you need to be on the job with them or something like that. And it doesn't mean that you need to be, again, don't be breathing down their neck. Be there as help. Be there as an enabler. Be there as somebody that's, you're enabling the process to move as smoothly as possible. Good leadership is extremely important, and we're lacking in that. People talk about, work ethic, and they're talking about like service industry people and stuff like that. And it's not just that, it's also leadership. It's also about how people are treating other people. And then the flip side, let's not just pick on the leaders, okay? On the flip side of it is there's a lot of people that are coming into the workforce and have been for the last decade, and this has always existed. It's just there's now a larger number of that going on, and I don't know, you can blame the internet age, you can blame the phone age, or I definitely think that there's some good truth to a lot of that, but they come in with a narcissistic, self-entitled mentality into the workforce. You should pay me X. Why? Why should I pay you X? Why should I pay you X amount of dollars? Tell me, show me, prove it to me, right? Show me why it is that I should have to pay you X amount of dollars. Okay? If you were coming to my house and you said, I want $1,500 to do this work on your house or whatever, I'd be like, oh, okay, have you done this work before? Are you good at it? Do you have any kind of sort of proven, kind of thing? I know that's part of getting hired, but then once you are doing the job, like with a contractor, you can just never call them back again, right? But employees a lot harder once they're in, especially nowadays. And people are like, oh no, we hired another one, or no, we hired a drama king. I'm not going to always just say drama queen, but drama kings. And we're bringing that mess into our organization, and now it's so hard to get rid of them. And there's a lot of that goes on, and it's not just in a particular age group. People want to pick on, they learn that from somewhere. Work ethic comes from your raising. It's in, how your parents raise you and stuff. Not 100%, but a big part of it. The lion's share of it definitely comes in the way you're raised. But then the other part of that is like, what are you doing? Are you working to stay as motivated as you can? Are you trying to improve your skills? Are you trying to get better at your job? And that doesn't seem to be there. It's like, nah, they just pay me to do this thing or whatever and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, you're never going to reach any level of greatness in anything you do unless you're going to put forth that effort, and you've got to put forth that effort. And it's tough. It's tough when you're tired and you're wore down, and you're dealing with your kids or your spouse or financial issues or whatever it is. I know it's difficult, but when you show up to the job, you want to be able to feel good about it at the end of the day. You want to be able to sleep well at night knowing I put forth everything I could today. I put forth everything I could every day, and what was physically able to do, because you're going to get so good at what you do when you put forth that effort and that focus on it, that people are going to look up to you and respect you, and again, you're going to feel better about yourself. And instead of having a false confidence, you're going to build real confidence, and people will have confidence in you, and people will want to look to you as a leader, and you will get promoted, and that's the thing. And I understand people, sometimes they have to leave jobs. Sometimes there's only so many positions to move up and everything like that. I understand people have to leave jobs, and sometimes there's toxic work environments and everything like that. But it's not just on the employer side. I wasn't like told growing up or whatever that, my boss has to treat me good or anything like that. That was never part of the conversation. Matter of fact, it's quite the opposite. I was told you're going to have some, a-hole bosses. I mean, I was told that. And I'm grateful for my upbringing because it prepared me much better for the workforce. And I do think that the younger generation, not all of them, but en masse, a large portion of them, are not being brought up to value hard work, and they're not to put forth the effort. And when you show up to work, put forth your full effort. And if you're not, two wrongs don't make a right, if you're not rewarded properly for that after a time, and they don't recognize it, be your own self-advocate. Say, hey, I've done all this stuff. I feel like I'm doing good. Tell me if I'm not. I think I'm doing good stuff. Can I get a raise? Can I get a promotion? Can I, is there more opportunity for me? And people will be happy. People talk about like minimum wage. There's no studious, hardworking people in anywhere around here that are making minimum wage.
Yeah.
If you're a good worker, I mean, minimum wage isn't going to last a month on you, right? If you're a good worker, showing up on time and everything like that, you're going to zip right past minimum wage.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's always been that way.
Yeah. It was like that for me. At one of the largest corporations in America where I worked for it. That people say like don't pay their people that well. But I ended up at almost $20 an hour. Like working my way up.
Yeah.
So let me touch on a couple of things. I had it in my mind. So how do we, outside of asking people to like and share, and especially share, this video, but I don't know how much you get it. When I scroll through my news feed, like Daily Dot is like one of the most caustic things. Like, I don't know why it comes up on my news feed, but it's quiet quitting and working your wage. Basically, quiet quitting is just kind of,
doing the bare.
Yeah, being completely, like whatever, worthless till they either fire you and you can go get like
unemployment.
Unemployment, or working your wage. Basically, is like just do the bare minimum, not necessarily with the intent to get like fired or whatever, but not putting it forth. But I mean, they're espousing this, like on stuff like TikTok, and then also as far as TikTok, like how do we get the younger crowd, like TikTok, what is it, Instagram, like with these things that are like damaging the younger crowds and even some adults, like attention span, because I think a lot of that, reward, like I need it right now, or, like, oh, I wasn't able to do this on the first try, I need to give up, because like, our attention spans are like shrinking because of, stuff like that. Like,
I got a couple ideas. I mean, I got a few ideas.
Yeah.
Ban TikTok.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things that I don't think should exist. I don't think TikTok should exist. I guess if something like it, I wouldn't be able to say get rid of it. I don't agree with just banning anything like outright or anything like that, or government controls. But TikTok is, a Chinese owned and operated intelligence gathering thing. Yeah. And the what's promoted on TikTok here in the States is different than what's promoted over in China. So they promote like hard work kind of ideals and stuff like that, and more family valued sort oriented sort of ideals. That's the stuff that they promote more on the platform overseas. And over here they promote these short, glib, noisy, videos and stuff like that, and girls that are half dressed and just doing dances and stupid challenges where people get hurt and maybe
everybody can
themselves.
be an influencer. Everybody wants to be that. That's like what what's that? I can't remember. I think they did some survey and they asked like so many American kids what they wanted to be, and it was like an influencer, a YouTuber, a game streamer, and then they like did a similar survey in China, and they wanted to be like a spaceman, an engineer, chemist.
Yeah, exactly, right.
So like I think I have an idea where we lost that, along the way, and it really has a lot to do with social media and like.
Oh, it's got to do with not just social media, and I think it started. Earlier than that, when we started telling everybody hard work bad, like go to college, get a degree so you don't have to work as hard like as that guy digging the ditch right there, right? Like we kept telling people like oh no, hard work bad, and that's part of it, right? And then you get the social contagion sort of aspects of it as well, where they're promoting this certain messaging. So they're hearing it all the time. They're constantly hearing this, work less, work your wage, kind of thing, give up, and it's sad. It really is sad because they're robbing the lives and livelihood of a generation, and I think it's extremely damaging. I think it's very, very damaging to the collective psyche of our workforce. I think it's really, really bad. I think the way to fix the messaging is to promote and show culturally, you want to look up to the hard workers. You want to say, hey man, that's a hardworking guy. I don't care if he's got a degree or not, or he's not a master in engineering or a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. But he's, that guy shows up every day. He's respectable. You know what I mean? Treats people right. He's got values, and believes and takes care of his family and stuff, and is a rock for those people around him. That's who you want to be, and that's who we should be promoting in our culture. It's what we used to promote. I mean, you look back at the days it was like cowboys and even if you go back to the movie where they blew up the asteroid or whatever.
I don't. There's two of them that came out at the same time. So.
Aerosmith song was on there.
Don't wanna close my eyes.
Cause I'll fall asleep and I'll miss you, baby. Cause I don't wanna miss a thing.
Yeah.
Independent? No, not Independence Day. That was the Alien one. Had Bruce Willis in it.
Was Bruce Willis in it? I never watched
Yeah, Bruce Willis. Yeah, it was the oh man, dadgummit.
See, I know it's not Deep Impact. That's the other one.
No. This is older, man. This is
that came out about
over
the same
20
time.
years ago.
Deep Impact came out about the same time as that. That was one of those where like the one studio had to. Copy
Well, we're getting off topic anyway.
Yeah. So what was your point there?
But they were a bunch of oil rig workers, roughnecks and stuff, and they were, and there was sort of like this sort of macho, hardworking, these guys could figure it out. Sort of, they kind of captured that in the film. Even though there's a bunch of crazy, dysfunctional guys in that group, they functioned as a team, and they got, saved the planet and everything. And it was these blue collar guys, these hardworking guys, and that they were the heroes of the story.
Yeah.
And I think that culturally, if you do that a lot more, but also culturally for the scientists, the doctors, engineers, whatever, and highlight the great breakthroughs and the discoveries and everything. And there was a time for even that, like in a lot of films and stuff. I remember, like in the 80s and stuff like that, there was like the weird science stuff, and there was a lot of like these funky science breakthroughs that would change the world and stuff, and they were the heroes of the story. So there was always these hardworking sort of masters of their craft, storylines where they were the hero of the story, and that promotes that idea. And I don't nowadays, especially, like, I mean, I haven't seen like a really good story in a film or a movie.
So what you're saying, once again, Hollywood's like helping the cultural decay, and then they're going to come out and when they realize it's like damaging, try to like tell us how we were wrong and that they were okay.
Yeah, exactly. It's our fault.
Yeah.
It's all our fault.
Okay, so going back to the work your wage thing, do you think like maybe a solution for some people like that don't understand how much of an employer actually pays per hour, like, do you think that employers could somehow like stress to them that, at $15 an hour, I'm probably paying $20 to $23 an hour, like depending on like the health benefits, the insurance you have to pay on the other end.
I think only your good workers understand that.
Yeah, no, but like, is that something, something they should sit down maybe, to be like, hey, like.
I mean, if people don't know that already.
Yeah, I guess it's not gonna help to sit down and be like, hey, you're losing me money, like, I don't know that's
well,
helpful,
if you have to let somebody go and stuff, you can be very unemotional about it and be like, hey, it's just the numbers.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the numbers, and you have to get rid of your least productive first.
Yeah.
So when you're doing stuff like that, it's like, look, the numbers just don't add up. They don't come together. We have to take this step, you know, and because a person has to make you more on average, because there's, you know, people don't understand businesses. There's slow days and there's fast days. There's days you make profit. There's days you don't.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. But on average, it has to average out where you make them more than they pay you in cost and benefits and taxes and everything else. And that's very, very difficult to do. And as a small business, I can tell you, I can attest to it very much so. It is extremely difficult to do nowadays. It's gotten much, much harder than it used to be. I mean, the amount of small businesses that have gone under in the last couple of years is insane.
Yeah.
You know, no time in history has it been as bad. So, you know, and it's tough. It's very, very tough to run a business in this environment. And even for bigger businesses, it's really tough. I think that, you know, if we continue down this path, it's just going to kind of get worse.
Yeah.
Right.
So, having worked for a big corporation, I think I've said it before, but Walmart, the push for, like, I understand people need a living wage, but minimum wage was never set up to be a living wage. Like, you know,
Yeah.
you were, like, you know, meant to, like, work your way up. But I mean, there's some people that's all they can do. You know, they have so much stuff they can't, like, go to school to better themselves or spend the extra time because they got, like, kids. But my point is, when they started pushing the minimum wage to $10 and $15 an hour when I worked at Walmart, or I don't know if it was ever 15, but I think they were pushing. But they still haven't raised the federal minimum, right?
No, I don't think so.
But there was a big push nationwide to, you know, to bring up the minimum wage, and that, which isn't a terrible thing, but I still think that it should be by states, because, like, obviously places like California and New York, you just can't live, you know, at all. You might as well not even, like, be in the state, you know, if they didn't pay a little bit more. So states adjust, you know, their own minimum wage or that. But my point is, that big push or whatever, what was it, maybe as much as 10 years ago, for, like, across the board to, like, push everybody's wages up? What happened, like, when I worked at Walmart, was the people that have been there forever, like, we used to get, like, when the cost of living, you know, like, part went up, they just stopped doing that, you know, so they started, you know, trying to bring everybody at the company up to, like, $9 an hour.
Yep.
But when they did that before, like, you know, if a store's, like, cost of living went up, you know, the people that work there, like, so they cut that off for people that work there.
Yep.
Already, you know, put in the years. But they got to the point where they, like, really make it hard to even, like, get raises in that, because you know, Walmart, when I first started working there, you could get up to $1.10 a year worth of raises, which is, like, was phenomenal. You know, that's phenomenal for, like, a lot of places, like, even places you've worked, like, in maintenance, right?
Yep.
But progressively, as people, like, push for, like higher, like, minimum wages, like, the corporations, like, yeah, like, people want to be like, oh, they're just looking out for the shareholders, but, like, there's a point where it's like they're just going to lose money, right? But I know that Amazon kind of did the same thing. There was people that worked for the Amazon warehouses and worked their way up, and they stopped getting, like, you know, bonuses and that. And I found out last year, we used to get quarterly bonuses when I worked at Walmart. Like, if the store did well, you know, if everybody worked together, they stopped doing that. So, like, basically, what the push is doing is, like, okay, let's bring everybody up, but you're never going to be able to move up now. That's going to be like the truth of, like, big corporations, you know?
Yep.
And if we're pushing out the smaller guys, you know, because a lot of, like, smaller businesses, like, close down, they would probably still do that. Like, we're just going to be locked into these horrible, like, wages, like.
Yep. And everybody's going to be making the same amount of money. There's going to be the bottom and the top, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I hate to be depressing, but that's, like, what I've seen along the way, you know.
Well,
like, how do we break out of that? Cause,
yeah,
like, I've heard people that, you know, cried about, oh, my minimum wage, my minimum wage, I don't need to put in any more than that. And now, like, where's my bonuses? Where's my raises? You know, like.
Yep.
Well, what do you expect? You know, like.
Yep. Yeah, and on the minimum wage front, I used to be a supporter of the minimum wage, but it was a lot lower at the time, and almost nobody got paid it anyway. But now I don't support a minimum wage, period. And I might differ from you on that, but I don't think...
I didn't say I support the minimum wage.
Yeah.
I just like have a little more understanding for
Well,
some case scenarios.
Because of your explanation, I mean, that very explanation, I think you actually put it very well. Because what ends up happening is like I worked for a place where it was there was a union involved. So I saw this firsthand. This is where my mind got changed on it, really. So there was a union involved there, and they went to the contract and they went to negotiate, right? They went to negotiate wage increases and stuff like that. So what ended up happening is you had your like technical guys, there were technicians that were, you know, electricians and machinists and mechanics. So like these are skilled guys, right? And they would like barely get a raise, right? And the operators would get like a bigger raise because their attitude, there was more of them in the union. And their attitude towards it was like, oh, maintenance already makes enough. Well, that attitude had been going on for decades.
Yeah.
So what it did was it held back the appropriate maintenance wage and made it very tough for them to hire and promote and keep people, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And an operator could come off the street and get hired with no experience and you know, just show up as long as you show up. And I mean, they had pretty loose
I guess I'll wait to see
attendance policies too.
There is something I want to mention if you don't mention it.
But
so go ahead. Like
the whole idea of the minimum wage there and why it was a lesson there is like, okay, if you keep increasing like the price of your lower skill labor pool and your skilled at the cost of your skilled labor pool's pay, you know what I'm saying? What ends up happening is people are not going to reach for that skilled level.
Yeah.
Right? Because once it gets to a certain point, and it doesn't even have to be on parity. It doesn't even have to be on parity because who's going to go to school? Who's going to push themselves hard for years at a time? Who's going to try to trade and sacrifice, you know, going to night school in their own time, studying, putting forth the real effort? Who's going to make that effort for another $1.50 an hour? And we're talking about years. We're not talking about like, hey, I just gotta put in a few months of work and then I'll get the raise kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right? No, we're talking about a lot of time to you know, just get the fundamentals under your belt to be able to actually enter into that. And then, okay, who's gonna reach for that? If the pay difference is so minimal, right?
Yeah.
And then how are you gonna retain that higher skill that you need, right?
Yeah.
The lower paid jobs are meant to be rungs in the ladder, okay, to success. And better pay and stuff like that. It's meant to be a rung in the ladder, and the more you push that up, you know, especially into different organizations, they have to absorb that cost somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so either the cost of your good goes up, and guess what? You're competing with China.
Yeah.
Right. And then on top of that, you know, okay, well, I don't want to increase the cost of my good, or maybe you split the difference between the cost of your good and your labor budget. So you're like, I've only got so many dollars in the labor budget. Who are we really taking it out of? And lo and behold, it's your more skilled guys and stuff. I watched a lot of the skilled, not just the skilled technical trades, but they definitely have been held back for decades. Because when I graduated high school, there was master diesel mechanics making like $35 an hour.
Yeah.
Like back when I was 18 years old.
Yeah.
And now they make less than that for the most part.
I guess that's kind of touching on what I've heard from like people, but I think also you like, so like in the retail field, it seemed like if you made more money, like they made your life a living hell, so you'd want to quit so they could hire somebody at a cheaper rate. But what I've heard from some people, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, you know, you're a maintenance person, you've been working for this company for 10 years and you're working, you know, like hoping you can get raises, and you ask for a raise and they're like, I don't know what I can do. But then they'll bring in somebody with like 2 years of experience and pay them more than you.
Yep. That's been happening.
And like
a
literally,
lot.
I think it was Ron told me one time, he was like, yeah, they would have been better off like quitting and getting rehired,
Yeah.
And that's just not right, you know, for like a corporation if somebody's like working their butt off for you.
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
like,
man.
Right. So,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
but you know, do you think that they like did that to kind of get people to quit, or is it just that they were short-sighted, you know?
Oh,
Like,
I think it might be a mix of both, man. I think that in some cases they might be like, you know, let them quit kind of thing. Like, just let them quit. They're not all that great anyway. Maybe we can find somebody better. And I think in some cases that is, and then I think in other cases it's just short-sightedness and desperation. They're just like, oh my gosh, we need somebody, and they try and they try and they try, and HR is like, we've sent out, and the headhunters are out there, and everybody else is out there, and they're throwing these dollar figures around, and people are like, no, I'm not going to do it for, I'm not going to do it for less. Because I've heard about guys getting, like over $30 an hour now that don't have any experience.
yeah.
And that blows my mind.
Well, and that was even before like COVID. I mean, obviously,
Oh, man.
sweetening the pot right now.
Oh,
just to
yeah,
get people,
definitely.
somebody to
Definitely.
fill a position. But
Yeah, definitely.
I think, again, probably something similar. Having worked for bigger corporations on that side, but it's like they would scale back almost to the point where one person was doing, 5 different people's jobs, right? And they'd refuse to give you a helper, just one helper, like at least somebody that you could be like, point at and go pick that up, set that
Yep.
over there or whatever,
Yep. Yep.
Like I dealt with that, in one of the more higher up positions, in retail I was in. Like it was just like, I busted my butt, to get what needed to be done in a week. And it wasn't stuff that could sit. It would literally be, because I worked in reclamations at the back. It would be like, letting your trash can fill up and keep filling up. The store would have been full of like returns, basically,
Yeah.
But they refused to give me a helper. And that was like part of their cost cutting, or I guess, to try to make the store more profitable, I guess. Like, I don't know that side of it because I've never worked in accounting, but...
Yeah, you got to be careful.
But that's a way. I'm sorry, like that is a way that I feel like they demoralize people or whatever. And
I think that's
because I got to the point where I
demoralizing.
called in
Yeah.
a lot because I was just so stressed out. I'm like, why? I fell into depression. I'm like, why
Yeah.
do I even want to go into this place?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep.
Okay. What were you want to add to that? Or?
No, yeah, I was just really agreeing with what you were saying there too. Is that what I learned very, very well over the years is that you don't let your bean counters make the decisions for you, and you also don't ignore your bean counters, right? They're telling you budgets. They're telling you they're there to keep you informed, so you make the decision, so that you make the right good decision because you know the business well. Accountants don't know how to run businesses. They know how to make the books work. They tell you, okay, this is how much money we have coming in, this is how much money we're going out, and this is what it's going out to, and this is what it's coming in from. This is our tax liabilities and everything like that. Accountants are not good at running businesses unless they've started their own accounting business or something like that, and they have the skill to do it or whatever. I'm not saying all accountants can't run a business. I'm just, from my experience, a lot of the CEOs that they started putting in charge of a lot of companies, especially older, more established companies, were more on the accounting side of things, and they made a lot of very, very short-sighted decisions.
Yeah,
no innovation.
They strengthened the most profitable part of a company.
Yeah.
And then sold off the rest. And,
Yeah. See, I in my business, I don't do that approach, right? There's unprofitable pieces of my business that I still offer as a service because we're more of a full service, right?
Yeah.
With that stuff there. And it's like that experience and knowing, like, guys can walk in, they did today, and they have all week and last week and stuff. Guys can walk in here and be like, man, can you help me out? Or call us on the phone and be like, man, can you help me find this thing or whatever? I got this problem. And people will run in real quick, and somebody will throw something on the bench, and, Andrew take a look at it, troubleshoot it real quick for him, and have it back out up and running. Some people are like, man, somebody ran over this cable and cut it in half and stuff. Do you guys have anything? Yep, we got stuff right here. There's pieces and parts of my business that are not profitable, that don't make me money.
Yeah.
But they're part of the service, right? They're those extra things,
Yeah, and I have to wonder if that's why, outside of outside of Bezos buying up the world and trying to shut everything down, at least the retail sector, why a lot of, your business, like smaller businesses that used to thrive, like went under, because they were just listening to the wrong people. And, like when I worked at Radio Shack, I don't know if Radio Shack, like it probably should have went away a lot sooner than it did, but, they got to where they focused on selling cell phones, which wasn't even part of their original business, like, strategy or whatnot. So
they could have still, I think they could have successfully sold cell phones as well as their core business and everything.
But
and
that was like that big focus. And then I think a lot of people that, like was why they were even in business. It was just like, why, well, and I think when cell phones like were a dime a dozen or whatever, you could just go to Walmart and pick one up and like, what was even the point of Radio Shack?
Yeah, by then,
ate their profit,
By then it was done, man. It was done. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of things I think that we should do. What should we do as individuals? One, do your best. Right, that's the first thing. Do your best. Be an example to other people around you. Encourage other people when they're doing a good job. I understand if it's not your position or whatever to say something when somebody's not doing a good job, but encourage other people to work hard and put forth their best, whether they're being appreciated or not. That they can look themselves in the mirror at night and feel good about what they've done, and if it's time for them to move on, they can move on. Sometimes you have to make that choice. I've had to make that choice. We've all had to make that choice. I think that's understandable, but put forth your best effort. Become a master in what you're doing. And you're not going to become a master in what you're doing unless you put forth that hard work and that work ethic. All right, man. I think it's about time to go ahead and wrap her up. So, that conversation went by fast, but good conversation, man. Good conversation. If you would please subscribe. If you're watching this video, please hit the subscribe button. Share the video if you like. If you like this conversation, we're talking about work ethic and the nuances of it. We're not really picking on anybody in particular. We do see the problems kind of on all sides, employee, employer stuff. And if you'd like some other people to kind of hear the conversation and weigh in on it, comment and hit a thumbs up if you like it, or hit a thumbs down if you don't.
Yeah.
And as always, Mr. Jeremiah, take us out.
I ask you to think for yourself and anything important to you, and please leave a comment. Maybe tell us a topic of an episode you might want to see. But I just want to thank y'all for listening.
Thank you very much.